everybody, my name is Jessica. I'm the communications manager for Exodus Place, and a big part of my job is writing grants. So since I've started, I have been pretty successful with how many grants we've been awarded. So I know that there's a lot of nonprofits out there who could really benefit from some money with the times and all the stuff that's going on right now. So I wanted to share my top 5 tips for writing grants. So my first tip for everybody is to be specific. So think about what program specifically do you need the money for, and try to bring as much detail into that as you can so that foundation knows what exactly the money is going towards. More often than not, foundations are not going to grant money for the general operating budget, so it's very important to have a specific program in mind and a specific need, and to explain that in as much detail as possible. My second tip for writing grants is to describe why your organization is different. So, for example, a lot of people mistake Exodus Place as a homeless shelter, but we're actually transitional housing. So what that means is that our members pay low monthly dues to live there, and we don't put an expiration date on their stay. With homeless shelters, there's usually an expiration date. So when I'm writing grants, I make sure to highlight that, because that tells foundations this is why you should give to us specifically, and this is why we're special. My third tip is to do your research. This one is super important. You first want to know what kind of organizations the foundation funds. For example, if I was going to write a grant for Exodus Place and I came across a foundation that I was interested in, and I looked into it more and they primarily funded education for children, that would not match up very well, and we most likely would not get the grant. So it's important to do that research so that you don't waste your time writing a grant that you're not going to get. Most foundations would give to any and all worthy causes if they could, but that's just not really realistic. So that's why they hone in on specific areas of interest. It's also important to look on their company website, any reviews, how they describe themselves on the foundation website too. Tailor your responses to align with their goals and their missions. And it is totally okay to use some of their wording. You want them to know that you are both fighting for the same cause. And if they see that and they see the passion that you have and you share that passion, you're more likely to get funding. Another important thing is to look at how much they've awarded other organizations in the past. For example, if in the fine details it says that they're not going to provide any more than $3,000, you don't want to ask for 10. It's not going to look good and you're probably not going to get it. It's also important to look at how much they've awarded other organizations that maybe are similar to you. It might be a good indication of how much you could get awarded if you're unsure how much to request. Tip number 4 is to talk about the problem, but focus on the solution. It's definitely important to talk about what specifically your problem is and why you need the money, but it's arguably more important to say what is going to come out of it. Because at the end of the day, that's really what the grant makers want to see. They want to see the progress and the growth that the money they provide you is going to allow. They're not as interested in the problem as they are in how they can contribute to the solution. It's also very important to touch on the measurable outcomes that the grant makers will see if you are awarded the money. How is this going to be a long-term fix instead of just a temporary band-aid? Or how many people specifically are you going to help, and what is that help going to look like if you get awarded this money? My tip number 5 is to set your deadline earlier than theirs. I would suggest a couple weeks at least 1 week. This is extremely important to have your final, I say that in quotes, your final draft ready to go a couple weeks before it's due, and then have as many people proofread it as you can, and as many people from different departments. If that's accounting, or in our case, sometimes I'll have case management look at it. It's very important to have as many eyes on it as you can, so that means you have a better chance of catching mistakes, or if something maybe doesn't make sense. Another good thing to do if you have a final draft a couple weeks earlier is to just set it aside for a couple days and then return to it with, a fresh eyes, and maybe you'll catch something that you didn't before. That's something that I do in almost all of my writing, especially if I start getting writer's block. I just set it aside, come back to it, and if you give yourself a couple weeks before it's due, then you have time to do that. But if your final draft is ready the day before it's due, that's not really an option for you. And I have one final bonus tip for you, and that's just to be passionate. If you use emotion to show the foundation why you care so much, they're going to as well. I hope this was helpful for everybody out there trying to write grants during this difficult time. If it was, please leave a comment below. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe.